Yes, welcome to this interview. I'm Honorable Sirajin Rollings-Kamara, Communication Director for Africa-Israel Initiative. We are very much privileged and opportune to have you to the first Africa-Israel Parliamentary Summit. And I would like you to introduce yourself, maybe the political party you represent in Israel, and maybe how long you've been in Parliament, just a brief introduction.
Okay. So my name is Amit Halevi. I'm a Knesset member, parliament member from the Likud party, which is the majority part of our coalition, the Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister party of Israel. And I'm very glad to be here as part of, as you said, the first parliamentarian conference summit here. I think it's a very, very unique summit here. I'm a member of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, and I'm also the head of the subcommittee of our security concept and the building of our forces, military forces. And because of that, I think and I evaluate this type of conferences that not only deal with the political aspects, but also recognize that these, interests, never mind if it's security, economy, trade, tourism, based on our common values, rooted in our common ideology. And I think this is the most important thing, because interest may shift in time, goes here and there, but the real infrastructure of our relationship, especially Israel and Africa, first of all, we are neighbors.
Yeah.
We are neighbors, and we should be and must be good neighbors. And we're not only neighbors, we have also historic common past, because many of the African nations and Israel had, suffered from
Colonialism, yes.
And we know what is liberation. We feel liberation. And that's why, especially today, when we face those powers that actually threat the free world, our cooperation is so essential.
Okay, thank you very much for even answering my third question that you're like a journalist. Thank you so much. Of course, I was a member of the World Likud party.
Okay.
I still support Bibi, he has a great following, because we believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is, for now, except for another generation, he is the most fitting person to stand for the state of Israel and see about its redemption. And this brings me to the question. Of course, you told me about defense. I pray for the IDF on a daily basis, as I pray for Israel 3 times a day. For us in Sierra Leone and maybe other African countries, we are not happy when we saw a huge number of Israelis demonstrating against the government over Hamas. I must tell you that if we didn't have this stronger relationship, some of us would have backed out. But can you tell, I know Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, because it will not happen in other countries. But I'm just wondering, how could citizens settle for less, for something little, and want your president to do something foolish over the lives of the millions of Israelis that this atrocious government like Iran want to see Israel face extermination. So as a member of the Committee on Defense and International Relations, what do you think about that act of behavior of the Israeli citizens?
Well, you defined it very well, because from one side, we are a democracy, and it's very good that we are a democracy, so demonstrations are welcome. Everybody can demonstrate, there is free speech, he can say what he wants, he can, of course, resist the opinions and the policy of the government. This is fine. The problem is that, as you also said, that the problem is that they have big mistake, because let's talk about the hostages, because this is the cause of those demonstrations. Former trolls, the hostages, or let's say so, Sinwar, the murder of the leader, murder of Hamas, has no interest today to make a deal, what we call deal, and he called Hudna, because he today, I'm talking about today circumstances, he has the control in the majority of the population of the population of Gaza, land of Gaza, underground of Gaza, also soldiers, because the IDF actually, since October 27, started with, a serious operation, and that's the reason why we had the first deal, because Sinwar thought, whoa, maybe the IDF is going to conquer the Gaza Strip seriously, and to clean it from all the terror infrastructure that was built there for years. And then we stopped. January 7, January 16, never mind, we stopped. I mean, we're in the middle of a war, but the concept of the war, unfortunately, is specific operations here and there. In Rafah, there we're doing, in Zaytun neighborhood of Gaza, we're doing here and there. No, we must repeat and we must restart the method of war, not only specific operations. And that's the only way that we can really cause Hamas and Sinwar to make a deal. More than that, I will tell you. Also, from the religious point of view, they are forbidden to make a deal unless they are weak. If they are strong, they cannot make a deal according to the tradition, to the religious rules of the radical Muslims. So what I'm saying, though, that maybe that these demonstrations had good willing, but eventually the message that Hamas gets from this demonstration, that not only he controlled Gaza, he also controlled the Israeli society. There was a strike a week ago in Israel that causes Hamas not to give the hostages. He doesn't treat the hostages as human beings. They are only a tool that should serve the jihad victory, that should serve the destruction of Israel. This is it. So he makes his considerations, and when he sees that he is not under pressure, and more than that, the demonstrations in Israel, he succeeded to split Israel and to make all these things that you mentioned. So he has no reason to bring back the hostages. So if we want to bring home the hostages, and we owe to do it, it's our people that were actually, how I can say it, we owe to bring them back to their cities, to their homes, and if we want this, we need to restart the war in Gaza, to make a serious military pressure over Hamas and over Sinwar. This is the only effective way that the hostages will be home back. Only effective way. That's why the demonstrations, unfortunately, don't help the goals that they supposed to help. And I think the people there just have big mistake. And I explained it here in your important media, but I'm doing it in Israel many times. I also said it I told it to the hostages' family, very honestly. I told them, people just let you they actually cause you to be mistake. This is not the way to bring back the hostages. This is not the way to the security of Israel.
Okay, thank you very much. And you mentioned earlier about, of course, Africa is the only continent that has land border with Israel. And as you mentioned also, we had a lot of similarities. I can go back to the quote of Theodore Herzl, that after liberating Israel, the next point is to equip, empower Africa. And we saw what Mashab did for us in Sierra Leone. In fact, before we gained independence from Britain, and the British government denied to build us a parliament building, the foreign minister approached the Israeli and they agreed. If you go to Freetown, Sierra Leone, you find out that our parliament is a replica of the Knesset. After that, yes, they built the parliament, they built the Bank of Sierra Leone, the central bank, the central post office, ministerial building. We have a lot of military training camp, the oil refinery. So for us, we have a lot of items, things that we can count that we got as a blessing from Israel. And for some of us who are enlightened and spiritually minded, we see Genesis 12 verse 3 as us, Africa cursing Israel. Because 12 verse 3, Genesis 12 says, if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. You curse Israel, you'll be cursed. And for us to see a friend who has developed our country, remove us from shame, all of a sudden to join the side of somebody who is opposing him, to us is a curse to Israel, and the curse is reflecting on us. And I think that the same thing that is happening in many African countries. So even when you see a lot of aid, financial aid, other things come to Africa, we still battle to develop. And we see from nowhere how Israel has transformed the Negev, 57% Negev, and today you can grow potato, carrots anywhere. I will always say that, and we have led a team back home to confess of this, but we also think that we don't want Israel to look at Africa that way. We as a continent don't have the willpower to stand as like you as a small country stood, because had you not been resilient, then by now we'll be talking about the end of Israelis, just like we don't hear about the Jebusite, the Perizzite, the Hittite anymore. I think this is the aim of those other countries. But I think you still have a partner in Africa. When Benjamin Netanyahu went to Africa, I was interviewing on the BBC. I said this is the perfect partnership, Africa and Israel. And we saw that in area of agriculture and high-tech. With all of this wrong voting at the UN, what is the position of Israel towards Africa? Because if I tell you, I don't think we have more than 2 countries. And we are also grateful to this deputy chair of the ICJ, the Ugandan judge, who actually came openly and voted for Israel. This is the approach. This is what you want to see. Do you think you have employed, you have exhausted all means to have Africa mobilize to vote for Israel at the UN, the EU? Because I remember there was a fracas here at one time, I think 2 years ago, when the Israeli ambassador was embarrassed there. We don't even want to remember that again. Will you want to work us now that we've set the space of Africa-Israel Parliamentary Summit? This is a foundation. What do you think you can add to this by way of knowledge, technique, or strategy so that the goal of having Israel be voted for in the UN actually goes to a geometric progression?
I think it's not, it's not something that you push a button and it will be changed. We need to make a very persistently and constant work together. I think here in the room near us, we have 41, I think, representatives of African nations. Every one of them has its own unique challenges, internal society challenges, technological, geographical, climate, water, whatever that you mentioned. I think that the ally between us, between Israel and the African countries, should be based on our shared values. That's why the vote in the United Nations is part of it. It's not a deal in my eyes. It's not something, okay, we give you something, you give us. No. It's to build our relationship throughout the years. And we need to start to do it, again, in a constant work And I think, in my eyes, I sat here for lunch with many of the representatives of Africa countries. I think there is a huge potential, big potential in many fields, as you mentioned. The vote in the United Nations is part of it, not because it's part. We're not trading the vote of the United Nations. We are asking ourselves whether all of us are in the right side of the history, whether all of us understand who are the real enemies today in Africa and in the Middle East. We ask ourselves whether African nations want to educate the people, the youth and the young children in Africa. What will be the next generation? These are the real questions. When we ask you to vote in the United Nations against the Palestinian state, we are asking you actually to vote against the largest terror base in the Middle East and Africa, because this terror headquarter named Palestinian state will be the source, will be the base of all the attacks in Africa, in the Middle East. And more than that, it's based on a horrible lie. I mean, we had the former Prime Minister that you know very well, Golda Meir, who was here before the Yom Kippur War, when we had also a vibrant relations. She was the Prime Minister before she was the for the Prime Minister. And she said, when she has been asked, what about the Palestinians? She said, I was Palestinian. I am a Palestinian, because everybody in Israel that was born from 1921, the mandate of the British Kingdom, to 1948, his passport was Palestinian passport. Yeah. And why is that? Because 2,000 years ago, the Caesar of Rome, Adrianus, decided to give this land the name of Palestine. And why he did this? He did it because we made serious rebellion against him. Mm-hmm. And he had a lot of people that were hurt, and he wanted to make a revenge. So he renamed the cities: Bet Shean, Scatopolis, Shechem, Nablus, Jerusalem, Ilia Capitolina, and the land of Israel was called Judea, like in the Roman coins, Judea Capta. Mm-hmm. We conquered Judea, but he named it as Palestine. It's a fiction. He took actually name of all tribes, Plishtim, that 1,000 years before him were actually occupied part of near the sea, part of the land near the sea. And he said, no, this is not Judea, because he wanted to take us off the map, to whip off us from the map, Israel in general. So that was historical lie. And that's why Golda Meir said, I had also Palestinian passport, because over the years, hundreds of years, the churches and many others used this name of Palestine. But there were no Palestine. And, in Israel, every meter that you are digging, if you dig and you find all those archaeological findings, you can find coins from the second Temple Mount, from the first Temple Mount. Even if you will made a lot of efforts, you cannot find even one Palestinian finding, because there was no Palestine. It's a lie. It's a name that the Adrianus Caesar put and gave to our land. And then, in the last century, in the 50s, when Yasser Arafat and other murderers that understood that it's not enough, this lie, because the state of Israel was established. So he said, no, it's not only the land is Palestine. We are Palestinian people. Never was and never will be. And when we asked from you to vote, was an example, to vote against Palestinian state, we asked from you to stand with truth. Not only with us, with truth, with the justice, with the biblical information, biblical values, biblical commands. That's what we're asking you. So what I'm saying is, and just to conclude my words, my statement is that, first of all, partnership should be we must expand and deepen our partnership. Also from the moral, biblical values point of view dimension, and in the practical issues, that your people will see the benefit from this ally. Yes, because we want to share all the things that we get, and we got in the past, and we have today. It's not for us. In our tradition, as it has been said to Abraham, our forefather, go to the land of Israel, be strong. 3 commands in the beginning. Go to the land of Israel means make your culture, make your nation, be strong, otherwise you will not survive. And the Hayeh Bracha means share your blessing with others. So this is what Israel is doing. We want to share our blessing. We wish that the African nations will also be part in the, not only, as I said, also from the moral point of view, but also from practical issues. We are open to that. I think this conference, if we can promote it and to continue it throughout the year, means that I, as a parliament member, my colleague from Israel, Sharon Eskel, and other people in Israel that love Africa and want to see that Africa, that we we have a good connections and we strengthen our ties. I think that we should, detail after detail, we need just to take a mission: agriculture, education, cyber, technology, and to work with the parliamentarian representatives here, and that will create a new atmosphere and different climate in our relations, I hope.
This summit is a seed has been sown. It has to germinate. It's already germinated, but we need to water it. It's not like the general flood irrigation system. It's going to be drip irrigation, strategically taking the Israeli pattern. We are setting up a team. Definitely, you stand out there and talk about what is happening. Oh, it's Israeli, it's Jew, that's right. But we have taken the platform, we want to take it as Black Africans, to take the stance and take the platform and say, we want to tell the story our own way, the African way, to those who are being reprobate, who have been very recalcitrant to believing that this land belongs to Israel. And of course, we will want to acquire more knowledge from you, and we are setting up regional bodies for West Africa. I've spoken to the member of parliament in Angola, the lady, and she's very much ready to lead a women's group in the SADC region, South Africa, and these are the voices we want to see. And we just want to let you know that, as I said, it's the perfect partnership. We always believe from scriptures that we bless Israel and we'll be blessed. And materially, physically, we've also seen, as I mentioned, about the infrastructure you did in Sierra Leone. So we want to give back. I tell you, we have a good number. I felt bad that Dr. Asha did not come, but in fact, I've arranged for him to come to Sierra Leone to speak to some students in university on anti-Semitism. We will want to be calling you time and again. More so, if possible, we raise up a think tank of Africans whom you can impart this knowledge to, so that we can speak on your behalf. Not that you don't know what to say, but more often when you start to speak, what is his name? It's Israeli, Jew. But if somebody like me, and they'll say, this guy, in fact, his name he has a Muslim name. Why is he talking for Israel? So many people want to listen, and I think that's the drive we want to take.
We saw how much money the Qatar regime and others invested in the intellectual elite of the United States of America.
Yes, yeah.
And that can give you a clue, it's something that's like, it's open you a window to see how these extremists, influence with lies and the radical way of thinking over America. And I think you are definitely right. We need to invest and to establish this type of think tank and the research and information centers that can promote and can make this knowledge accessible to everybody. And as you said, if you say it, it's better than that I say it, and maybe it's more acceptable in the media and in the population. So it's very, very important. I think that the first mission is education. Education includes what you just said.
Okay.
Knowledge, understanding, facts. As I said now about Palestine, I'm sure many in the African youth don't know about it, don't know what is the history of the word Palestine, what is the history of the Palestinian people, what is the history of the Jewish people. Although, you know the Bible, you know the Old Testimony, and still we have a lot to learn and to teach. So I definitely agreed. This is maybe the most important issue, because this is the issue that will set the future. The education set the future. I think we are in a crossroad today of two paths of monotheism, of faith, monotheist faith. There are two paths. One is monotheism as dictatorship. This is the monotheism that the radical Muslims offer the world, that God himself is enslaver, is forcer, and actually aim to cause to the human being to be surrounded under his rules. And the other monotheism path is the biblical monotheism, the real biblical monotheism, that actually believe in one God, means that believe that every human being is a creator in the image of God, and that's why freedom and unity. Everyone brings his own uniqueness to the world culture, to the world family, and everyone is created, as I said, in the image of God. And that's why our monotheism means unity and freedom. And the radical Muslims' monotheism is actually enslavement. And I think this is the course. If I want one thing that will be in our discourse, I think this is it. Strengthen our belief, our biblical values, our biblical belief. Do it in the educational system. This is our identity. This is our history. This is our philosophy. Don't give those bad winds to come into your houses, into your schools. This is false monotheism. This is bad monotheism. This is the colonialist monotheism. God wants us to be free. If you're a believer, but somebody forced you to be a believer, you're not a true believer.
That's all.
To be a true believer means that you, from yourself, you're a free man. This is all. That's what happened in Exodus 300 years ago. That our Exodus, our exit from Egypt, was a model of freedom. Not only that we were freed from Paro, from the Egyptian regime, it was a model for freedom. So that people don't want to be enslaved by others. They want to live in their own country, in their own land. And I think this is the real message. The message of liberation. It's a common message of our nations, and it's the central message of our faith and of the right way of the right concept of monotheism, of the religious philosophy. And if you want me one thing, so I choose this thing, because I think these enemies are really threat the freedom of the whole world. They don't want only, they don't fight us because they want only the destruction of Israel and the destruction of the freedom of our nation. They actually threat the freedom of every individual, because they said, oh, you be Muslim, or you can't live.
Yes.
Or you live as a second class of citizens. This is exactly where we were 8 years ago, with a regime that has totalitarian and racist characters. So now it's not the Aryan race, like in the Nazis regime. It's the radical Muslim religious, but it doesn't matter. This is the same situation. That's why we have a mission. That's why I came here, although it's the middle of the war. I'm not coming in the middle of the war.
Yeah.
I'm not going abroad. I came here because I consider every one of us as soldiers in this front line against these radicals. And we have responsibility for a different future of true belief, of freedom, of unity. Not of everybody must be exactly like the Shian Ayatollah regime, otherwise he died. So this is the real message, and I hope we started to hear something big in this summit, hopefully.
Thank you very much, MK. I think we're blessed. The last point you said was going to be my first point about what we have in common. We were enslaved, and millions of Africans died in the Atlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
And you were also enslaved by the Holocaust, and even Hitler.
The Holocaust.
Yes, before the Holocaust,
the Middle Age.
you have the dispersion time and again, and even during Hitler, over 6 million Jews were gassed in those places. So,
and by the way, Hitler compared the Afro-American or the Africans to the Jews.
Yes,
He did it because his racist way of thinking.
Yeah.
Caused him to make this comparison between us, and I think that's why because we know what is to be enslaved, what is to be under occupation. That's why we can cooperate.
Yeah, I think that's the message we have to take home, that we have a common denominator, which is liberation. We got our independence. We are still not free. We don't have economic freedom. We don't have freedom whatever. So I'm sure a partnership with Israel will give us that freedom and total liberation. Thank you very much, and we'll continue to work together.